here we go. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. What is the elephant in the room? The elephant in the room is this whole thing in regards to finance democracy for Jasmy. Now, just on the surface, lately, and even myself, I was mentioning this to Will, the whole notion of Jasmy being mentioned in the same sentence when it comes to Ripple's XRP or Stellar's XLM, when it comes to cross-border payments, as Brad Garlinghouse would say, Will, just sounds cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, right? Just sounds nuts. I mean, yeah, we get it, the IoT, but cross-border payments sounds crazy. So what do we have in regards to this? Well, let's start off things by giving you a little refresher, a reminder. So for one, when we look more into the whole thing of Jasmy, a lot has been mentioned over the course of, 4 or 5 months about the super wallet. So what are we talking about in regards to the super wallet? Well, for one, I did a video a while back. Yeah, it was on my old channel about super wallet. That's not the point. If you go to Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it nowadays, if you do a simple search, Jasmy super wallet, a lot of content creators have talked about this whole thing of the super wallet. So for one, NeoXTrix, shout out to him. He talks about, for instance, Jasmy Chain. We know that this is a layer 2 solution. It's a roll up, right? When it comes to optimism, it did that little outline. Talk about, for instance, even on the Web3 solution for cloud storage. We understand that, Jasmy even has scalability when it comes to, Polkadot, for instance, right? So I want your key takeaway to be the enablers, all right? So NeoXTrix talks about the meaning of the super wallet and how we have this ability to have participate, because you guys are asking about it, the token unlocking, right? So remember, these key things for you guys, the lockups, the enablers, super wallet, all this stuff. Getting more into it, even from the Jasmy Labs site, there was talk about Jasmy Pro. Jasmy Pro promotes just that development of the Jasmy super wallet. And the key thing is this. Remember back a while, for some of you guys who have been really into Jasmy, Hara consistently mentioned, we will eventually get to the point where, in a nice way, to hell with Binance, we won't be so dependent on it. How is that? Not being dependent on a centralized exchange through what? Something like the super wallet. So, like it says here, Jasmy super wallet, mix of C, DeFi, as in centralized finance, decentralized finance, so you can access Binance without, for instance, the Binance app, not having that dependency on it. Look what's also mentioned here. Aussie Life, I think he might be here tonight. I don't know. But was talking about a long time ago, somebody got hacked on the Atomic wallet. All right, why am I referencing that? Well, we're going to get into that outline here in a bit as well. Of course, back on June 3rd, there was a hack. You felt bad for everyone who lost their hard-earned money on the Atomic wallet. This is why we need listen to this, guys, a platform tech like Jasmy. You have investments on the Atomic wallet, suggest to move now. Shout out to IC Amphibian. He might very well be watching tonight. Again, this is just a reminder. Talks about former Sony executives, Kunitake Ando, Cosmos Sato, super wallet release to access Binance without the need for the darn app, right? So all this stuff sounds really cool. The talk of atomic wallets, super wallets, all this stuff. So when we get into this, let's go ahead and just flat out introduce this to you. And I'm going to get to the right page in regards to that. So check it out for yourself. Here's a little bit of what we're talking about, and this is in reference to this right here. Now it says PDL, and I don't want you to think that we're referring to a personal data locker. Mentioned specifically interledger interoperability. Now, why would we mention interledger? Well, we know when it comes to Ripple, interledger does stand out. Now, PDL does not stand for personal data locker in regards to Jasmy, so please don't make that connection. And another disclaimer I want to make is, this is not a direct partnership of Ripple and Jasmy, but your main key takeaway for this should be, for one, when we did the whole thing in interoperability with Quant, this is going to present some big things for you guys in regards to interoperability with Jasmy and addressing the elephant in the room in regards to finance democratization, cross-border payments. How does this all get done for Jasmy? Everybody just kind of talks about the what ifs. Do we have anything solid to present to you guys in regards to this? Now, getting into this, and I want Will to chime in here in just a bit, I want to show you just some quick references in regards to just IoT in itself. So this is straight from this particular presented document, and getting just into it. Look at this citation for one, okay? Talks about a secure open federation of IoT platforms through what? Interledger technologies. Talks about, for instance, a little bit more about this, leveraging interledger technologies and IoT security risk management. Talks about security risk management for the Internet of Things, technologies and techniques for IoT security, privacy, data protection. So all this stuff sounds really, really cool. Look at this, a little bit more about this. Abbreviations for the purposes of the presented document. The following abbreviations apply: IoT, Internet of Things, Interledger Protocol, ILP. How about, for instance, National Interoperability Framework Observatory? Getting more into it, let me show you one more. Goes on to mention these preconditions. A device that requests a service on subscribed services and the service node in the visited network. Goes on to mention this whole thing of, providing a device that, an IoT device that generates a service failure report, which can include a reference ID, the sender information, service provider, servicing node. Goes on to mention a little bit more about this. Talks about a device that's, can send, and report using any application API by initiating a transaction to the reporting destination address locally configured. How about this for a second? Service type information can be specific. For example, network slice related to a service such as a massive Internet of Things network or devices. V2X, that kind of makes you wonder, right? But anyway, requested by the device, rejected. So there's so much stuff here. How about this? Design smart contract for ledger can send a trigger related to the service. The interledger sync application can send a smart contract responsible for ledger 2. And we think of ledger 2, there's got to be 2 ledgers. What do we know with Jasmy? Jasmy's building their own AI blockchain solution. That's a different ledger. What about this whole thing with XRP or Ripple's XRP? That's, for example, a whole different thing, right? But what about Ripple and Interledger? So, Will, when you went through this, right, especially when it comes to the smart contracts, all this stuff, I mean, we have a lot to get into, guys. I'm just being honest.
Yeah, what I saw was some of these coins use hashing. So, and hashing is specific to that coin. If you get a mining machine, it's specific for Bitcoin or specific for Caspa. And so when they use the security to validate transactions and they're using hashing, that's done by, like I said, particular miners. Well, those miners aren't hashing other coins. So how do you mix? Jasmy didn't have the ability to mix between all of the different types of coin. So the type of security measure that they had to validate on the transactions, that they didn't have it. So the ability to carry coins. So they kind of announced before they were capable. They kind of announced that they were going to be able to do cross-border transactions. So then people were calling, it's like they were calling the bluff. They're like, oh man,
Right. Because they don't take Jasmy seriously. And I think a lot of people still feel that way.
And they couldn't take them seriously, really, could they?
Well, it's just like,
So it might have been something's coming, but they didn't necessarily say, that this is coming, or this is, they just said, we're going to get into it. And so people just, it's like a head fake, to the people that look at it that way.
Yeah.
Now they weren't head faking. They knew exactly what they were going to do. And so when they got into if you're going to get, it's not just cross-border payments, it's being able to act as quant acts. where they can just about do anything. And so to me, what it looks like is that Jasmy is not only doing cross border, but in the Internet of Things. And we haven't got into that description yet, but you're about to describe, I believe, where it's not just peer to peer, but it's also chain and subchain, because the main chain needs to know what's going on a particular coin, and so the subchain has to be able to communicate what happened in a transaction to the main chain. And if the main chain is something that's using hashing, well, now how do you do that? How do you communicate that? So they came up with, because Ripple came up with a whole nother way. They don't use hashing. They use a whole nother way. So now what Jasmy has done is added the capability to get involved with all of it. Smart contracts, they'll be able to, because you got multiple coins. Let's say you have a smart contract that's maybe a value trading trigger that's going to happen between two different coins based on a trigger, say a baseball game, whoever wins a baseball game. So in the Internet of all things, you have AI, you have things being monitored, scores being done, and you make this betting contract, and one guy's betting the value of Jasmy. Is like, I'll use my Jasmy coin, and another guy's using Bitcoin. And and if it's a team of people betting and you got all these different coins, well, now Jasmy can play in that game, because it can communicate with all of these systems, kind of like having an ISO protocol that everybody that's going to use the same thing for the same reason, so they can participate. Well, we're getting ready to go over that, I believe, aren't we?
All right, we're going to get into this part of what Will Fix was talking about. So I'm going to show this to you guys. So, you have some crazy stuff here. All right, I'm just going to be honest. So for one, some of the things that are cited here, the regulation of European Parliament. You have, for instance, how about this for a second, guys? World Economic Forum Framework for Blockchain Interoperability, cited back in 2020. You have ISO /IEC information technology, cloud computing overview. So there's all sorts of different things that we can, obviously reference here.
They're referencing Barry White right down there.
Yeah, I saw that for a second. That's funny. I want to share this as well with you guys. So let's get into this. So let's jump up to the top part. You have this whole thing, Inter-American Development Bank. I mean, we're not just going to show you, just the citations. We got a solid outline for you guys, but, there's so many things here. European Interoperability Framework, the EIF. You have SOFI, Interledger Implementation. You have, ISO, like we just shared right here, Blockchain Distributed Ledger Technologies. Get more down into this in regards to Interledger. Let's pull this up for a second. Yeah, look at this for a second, guys. Interledger blockchain. Here's a little bit of that juicy part, okay? Because some of you guys who follow Jasmy, you know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to this. So this was written back in 2020. It talks about an Interledger blockchain platform for cross-border management, cybersecurity information, IEEE internet computing. Now, again, Jasmy Tadashi Morita, right there. Morita even still has some pending patents. He has some completed patents. So, again, we've done probably like 4 or 5 different video deep dives in regards to Tadashi Morita and how he really stands out, especially with his contributions that are even cited from the IEEE. Getting more into this, leveraging interledger technologies and what IoT security risk management. Interesting. How about this, guys? Technologies and techniques for IoT security, privacy, and data protection. Again, cited back in 2020. A little bit more about this. Interledger, I think it's highlighted. Yeah. Interledger approaches, IEEE again. I mean, every time I see IEEE, I mean, you know how many times we talked about this with Jasmy? Getting more into some of this.
Just XRP, right?
Well, there's Triple E, and then the whole thing with Jasmy, Tadashi Marita. And then we're gonna do the whole thing of Interledger with Ripple. So we're gonna show you some examples here real quick.
Ripple.
Yeah. So let's share this. Hopefully you can make it just a tad bit bigger. I know it's sometimes hard to see, but I guess that's a little bit too big. Hold on. Yeah, all right. This is the biggest I could make it, but we'll just explain it to you guys. So how would you guys like to have an example of a scenario of, for instance, interoperability between what is referred to as basically a permission distributed ledger? That's PDL. We're not talking about personal data lock. I know people see that, so they're just tuning in. They're like, oh my gosh, it says PDL. But the key thing is what you see here in regards to even storage and gateway. I mean, think about for a moment in regards to Jasmy with, where they're going with Polkadot, the example we mentioned in regards to that cloud solution, how that breakdown happens. Transactions of smart contracts, if you look at this particular diagram. And, kicking it down to this example with simple scenario of interoperability between two of these PDLs. Again, not the example of personal data locker, but there's security consideration. It says the major security consideration here is the single point of failure for a gateway. Remember that reference we had before. This means that if a gateway is compromised, the malicious party can take over the system and issue keys to themselves or possibly to other malicious parties. There's a solution here that instead of, is used instead of saving all the information, such as a readable data fields in the gateway that actually asks for the ledger for permission, PDL1 to access PDL2. The PDL2 decides, after running consensus, and sends and accepts, rejects signal to the gateway by executing a smart contract in the gateway ledger, which subsequently issues keys to the PDL1 requesting the ledger. Now, even though it doesn't say personal data locker, you can actually apply that same principle to that in regards to the actual Jasmy personal data locker. Getting more into this, it breaks down some examples, but gives you this whole thing of secured interoperability between two PDLs, a live verification. Examples of two interledger interoperability. How about this for a second? You know how many times Gilbert Verdian mentioned the whole thing of, immutable ledger. Things have to be immutable, trustless, future-proof. So look at this for a second. Interledger, because we're talking about Ripple, interoperability can occur between two ledgers. I want everybody to understand this, two ledgers. So again, think of Ripple with Interledger, and then think of, for instance, Jasmy with this new layer 2 scaling solution that they're doing, right? It goes more into about the architectural model of this. Three common facets of the interledger interoperability, which are unidirectional in the scheme of figure 5, but we're going to jump down to this. Why basically interledger? Well, like it says, transactions record records facet. It represents the transactions in regards to a distributed ledger whereby the replication is unstoppable between all the nodes, and the consolidation in regards to the validation and represent the source of this particular term, I know, from the interledger, the PDL. I'm actually going to join or get to this next part real quick. I want to talk about, API gateways. We already made that connection with Quant for interoperability. I feel like, that's been, been there, done that. But what about this thing in regards to Ripple and Jasmy? So it talks about this other example of interoperability, and specifically we're talking about cross-border payments. Okay, I know it sounds crazy when you just connect and hear this, but it talks about interoperability for an application, API gateway, for interoperability, the tools, auxiliary mechanism described at present. But basically, I want to jump into just a couple more things, because Will Fix was talking about, from what he gathered, in regards to a request, like a bridge. We're always talking about these bridge currencies and how that's done. What did you gather from some of these examples, Will?
Well, the same thing. I mean, the picture really says it all.
Yeah.
You can just see
request bridge, accessibility, request a bridge. Yeah. This other part. Go ahead.
The big thing to me was that because doing a transaction cross border is one thing, but when you get involved with when it talks about payments and it talks about leverage, as soon as it's bringing up leverage, that to me, it opens up a couple things. It opens up smart contracts, property, the derivatives market. Um, you know, that's way more than just cross border. So, with that ability, I mean, is it possible to see Jasmy putting smart contracts in their future or tokenization?
Yeah, and it's not just that. I mean, it opens up a whole realm of possibilities. I know for some people, like, maybe it seems a little bit Greek to you, but the point is pointing out some of this. It's not a case of Ripple has a partnership with Jasmy, and we're going to get into some of this stuff. But back many months ago, we talked about, for instance, Ripple's, what was it, guys? IVS Crypto 2023. All right. Diamond sponsor was Ripple over in Japan. Jasmy, along with other companies, were part of that. I'm not saying that, they're we're suggesting that they rubbed elbows. I mean, it's possible, right? But the key thing is, when you look more into some of this stuff, people say, how does some of this utility get utilized? It's one thing to be speculative, but do you have anything solid in regards to like interoperability? I know that gets used, it's a term that gets used a lot, but you need interoperability. What is interoperability? Like compatibility. Like, think about, like, if I have a Windows PC, I might have some software is not compatible, right, with my particular PC. When we talk about interoperability, it means everything has a flow to build bridges, like some of these examples that you see here. Literally talks about some of this stuff, semantic interoperability. Look at this example here. Legal interoperability, organizational interoperability, semantic interoperability, technical interoperability. I'm going to jump to this next particular one because, I feel like we just need to really, really get into the nitty gritty of this. So again, back to the whole thing of leveraging interledger technologies and IoT security risk management. I want to get to this part real quick. Let's see here. Yeah, it's got all sorts of things here about data integrity, data security, data format. I know for some of you guys, it's hard to see some of this. API tooling, atomic swaps. We're going to get into that actually, I think, right now. Or actually before this part. Future proof. You know how many times Gilbert Verdian reference it has to be future proof, in regards to quant. And again, we've already done that. I want to jump to this. And Will and I will both explain the significance of this. So both Will and I have the same slide, same material in regards to this. I'll read a little bit of this, and I want Will to definitely chime in here in a bit. European Interoperability Framework from the European Commission. Think about this for a second, guys, especially if you're just kind of talking amongst your friends and so on, community people. Hey, that's awesome. We appreciate that. But you came here for a reason. And one of those reasons is this hot, crazy topic. Because, let's face it, guys, I think a lot of people on the surface are not taking Jasmy serious when it comes to cross-border payments. And it just sounds nuts. Like when I was talking to Will earlier, I was just like, it's kind of like Dogecoin back in the day. It's like, it's a joke. I love Jasmy, don't get me wrong, IoT and all that. But, it's like jumping into or dipping your toe into the pool with the big boys. Who are the big boys? Ripple, Stellar, right? Not Jasmy. Like, people, I think they just think this is a joke. But when I got more into it with Will, guys, earlier, it just doesn't seem like a joke. How is it not a joke? Well, look at this. Talks about this framework for the European Commission, adopted all the way back in 2010 between the new European Union policies in the field of information technology with strong focus on openness, information management, data portability, interoperability governance, integrated service delivery. Talks about national interoperability framework, which is referred to the NIFO. You can look more into that if you want to be a nerd and do that. How you could produce a variety of documents with recommendations for policymakers. Where do we go in regards to policy when it comes to Japan? We have DFFT, data free flow with trust. And that is literally became the framework of not only Japan, but Japan went from, like embracing crypto. Before that, they had the whole thing of, are they really embracing it? Like now you see they're embracing it. DFFT, was it Taro Kono, taken over to Europe. Why wouldn't he want to take it over to Europe? Well, maybe because of the European Interoperability Framework of 2010, upgrading it. Look more into that. If I'm making this up, look more into it. The lady's name is Margaret Vestager. She represents the European Union. So they have their own upgrade. Then Tara Kono goes to, was it Latvia, Estonia, some other countries to promote DFFT framework for the European Union. Then it's introduced here in the United States, but they don't call it DFFT. But if you look more into it, that was the framework. My key thing for you guys is this. This, like it says, National Interoperability Framework produce a variety of documents with recommendations for policymakers. We see some of these things go on with the policymakers, business stakeholders, latest development of digital government interoperability across Europe, European Blockchain Service Infrastructure called the EBSI. And then here's the key part, guys. Officially established, which interledger interoperability will be a key ingredient for scalable business. What is Jasmy doing when it comes to scalability? They're sticking to that promise of this layer 2 solution, right? With, optimism, for instance, right? Some people criticize Jasmy because, it's still on Ethereum, right? It's not the original Ethereum, though. Not that garbage 14 TPS. Now they have the scalability solution that puts it pretty much on par with where, Ripple is at roughly 1500 TPS and so on. I know we want to scale much higher than that, but in reality, for the banks, do you really need it to be super higher than that? Some cases you do, some cases you don't. But the key thing is, at least it's not garbage, the original Ethereum. And that's a good positive thing. So they've been sticking to this roadmap and going to an AI blockchain solution. And we also covered some of that. But look at this. What does it say, guys? Ingredient for scalable business and connecting networks, not one network, for cross-border communications. And it says actually 4 use cases are applying the top EBSI, and one of them is related to the trusted data sharing, which is a value for considering interoperability as a priority within the deployment of European digital single market. By all means, I've been talking for a while. Chime in, Will. What do you think about this? I mean, to me, this is crazy.
Yeah, because it's what Ripple says about itself. It's what these other coins say about itself and what it's capable of doing. So really, that lifts Jasmy up to be able to do through language and their scalability, and through operability, through all of this chain and subchain, main chain, not just hashing. And I mean, it puts them really on the same level to play with the same toys. This really lifts them up right up there with everybody else, where all of the reasons that people may have had to think that they were, some kind of a lesser than coin. I mean,
Right.
didn't they get treated like that by Binance? They got set over, and then an experimental. What was it?
They sent to the innovation zone, and we were at 0.008, 0.008. We're only like with a 2/10 away from a penny. We have so much momentum, and then Binance.us put Jasmy in an innovation zone, create a lot of FUD. But to me, it was market manipulation, and we saw that. And what do we also see, guys? Like roughly 3 weeks to a month later, you had Binance, what's it called, Greenfield or whatever it is, and it's very similar to Jasmy, not completely. And it's just like, well, what's going on? And then we also see instances on Etherscan, of Binance. I mean, we know that Binance owns 26, 28%, something like that, in regards to Jasmy. And then what they do, they bought more Jasmy, bought 300 million Jasmy more. Maybe it's over $1 billion at this point over the course of 4 or 5 months now. So yeah, I would definitely say it's manipulation.
Yeah, it very well could be. And if they're set over there in the corner, because they're still being innovated, so to speak. Well, what is this right here? What does this do? Does this pull them out of that category? Because now they've actually added a very substantial amount of usability,
Well, this Yeah, I mean, I would look at it that way too. But I mean, some people who'll say, "Well, this is old," but the key thing is, again, guys, what are we staying true to? We're staying true to that roadmap. We're staying true to the white paper. Don't let any content creators say, "Hey, guess what? I don't like V2 migrations." Okay, do you not like a white paper? Because last I checked, I need to read that white paper. Most people don't, and let's just be honest, guys. I want scalability. I don't want to be stuck at where we're at, and then later on down the road, especially, let's face it, guys. Society 5.0, the smart cities in Japan, and so on. We're supposed to be able to realistically use the original solution of Jasmy for this new society that's supposed to be all ready to go by 2030, and fully, like, everybody's using it by 2050, like our grandkids and stuff like that. That's not happening with 14 to 18 TPS. There's just no way that's happening. So how does it happen? Well, you got to have something like this. You have to have something with interledger, right? This is, in my opinion, why Jasmy wants to take this whole thing to another level. And for some newcomers, you're saying, "Nah, I'm gonna take a Jasmy serious." All right. What about all the mention of Japan and when it comes to these pairings, right? Japanese yen denominated stablecoins. Why do you think we showed you guys the outline in regards to interoperability? Was it Quant already made their stake in Japan a few months ago, right? We understand that, and then we tied in the whole thing. Thank you to Quant Papa, by the way. Overledger, Bank of Japan. How about this, guys? SBI. Well, not just SBI. Was it SoftBank? How well invested they are into, like, Bijit and Jasmy and so on, like big players. So it's the enablers, it's the pairings. As you guys know, for instance, you're going to go buy Jasmy. Let's say you still have access to KuCoin, you live overseas. A pairing, you need those pairings. So Jasmy / Tether, Jasmy / Circle, USDC. Use that pairing to buy the particular asset and so on. Well, what about what they're trying to accomplish in Japan in regards to domestic bank pairings and so on, enabling the DD coin? I mean, some of this stuff sounds great, but let's get back to this topic. I want to just get a little bit more into this.
There's another
Yeah,
thought.
go ahead.
There's another thought. Countries with central banks, which I guess all of them have one. No, not all of them do. But when you have a central bank, then you usually have a bond market. When you have a bond market, the country is the security of the interest that's going to be paid on the bond market. So how they run their finances means you have a secure investment. The Japanese are having problems in their bond market. They have had unscheduled monthly purchases so far of their own bonds to support their own market. Why would that mean anything? Well, because when you can tokenize your bond market, and you've just opened it up to more than just people who know how to invest in bonds. You just opened it up to every guy with a computer on earth. What is the likelihood of, you've heard some of the things lined up with XRP being, the world reserve currency, for instance, and that was a plan. Okay, there's a lot of things out there that we could put together that what call them conspiracies, or call them whatever you want to call them, but or secret plans. But it crosses my mind that and not just Jasmy, but that is a Japanese company that now has a coin that's able to interact with things that would be in the bond market. I mean, okay, so I'm just saying that is there available. Now you got decision makers sitting down at a table, looking at their situation going, well, we cannot just open up to, other countries and people that know how to invest. We could open up our bond market to everybody that has a computer. Just saying.
Well, it's not, yeah, exactly. And then
I'm just saying, man.
Yeah.
Man.
The other thing they mentioned was blockchain smartphones was the announcement, I guess, the other day. For real, what was this? I released a video earlier. I can't keep up with all the names of these guys, right? Anyway, one particular guy from the Jasmy management team, says, yeah, we're open to finally do the whole thing of Apple and Android blockchain smartphones. And I'm like, God, wow, that's the key towards mass adoption. Who does? All our kids have, these phones, man. Like, not everybody has a PC, but all these kids definitely have phones for the most part. We're going to get into a little bit more about this, guys. Give us just a sec. Let's pull up this next one. I want to show you guys this. All right. So we talked about the whole thing of, in regards to this smart wallet. Okay. Check this out for a second. Look at this. Apps for interoperability. An application of ledger interoperability is shown in figure 10, where an end device user equipment can have service subscription with a network. And the home service provider can have roaming, for instance, service level agreement SLA with the visiting network to serve the device based on subscription. Service which includes subscribes network slice during roaming. And I'm also looking at from perspective of like, what about the utility layer of some of this stuff? Your personal data locker. Now on the bottom, that's not referring to Jasmy's personal data locker. But what about the interledger examples? Now, some of this is kind of hard to see, but talks about some of these devices, the API applications, interledger sync application. It breaks some of this down. Trusted service failure reporting and handling using PDL with ledger interoperability. We jump into this next part. I'm definitely going to have Will chime in here a bit too, because I see some of you guys are saying, I'm the big guy doing all the talking. Hey, I don't want to do all the talking actually, but I want to pay attention to this. So at the very beginning of the outline, just in case you just tuned in, it mentions, for instance, the reference towards the atomic wallet and how there was a hack. But what about this whole thing of atomic swaps? Right? Again, think about that darn super wallet, right? And how even Icy Amphibian from the Jasmy community was talking about, I can't wait for the Jasmy super wallet because it's kind of like atomic swap settlement takes out that problem that we've seen, for instance, from the atomic wallet, right? With the hack. Here's an example. Different categories can use the same basic mechanism, atomic swaps based on hash time lock contracts. Again, think about the whole lockup period, guys. I'm just being real about this. HTLCs are using atomic cross-chain transactions for direct trading between two peers. So again, think of Ripple, think of Jasmy. And transactions across a network, also referred to as payment networks. What do we know when it comes to Ripple? They rebranded it from on-demand liquidity to Ripple payments. What about this whole thing in Interledger, ILP? Some bridging, like Will was talking about. Hence, the difference between the categories with the respect to the underlying mechanisms is not always absolute. However, at higher level, the various categories differ in their initial application assumptions. Atomic cross-chain transactions target peer-to-peer trading between two parties. So again, think of like your personal data locker. Think about paired with the DD coin, data democratization coin. All right. What about, Max, when we get, yen denominated stable coins and paired with Jasmy? Okay, here's the example. The example would be that you would have this whole thing of atomic cross-chain transactions target peer-to-peer trading between those two parties that seek to exchange value. What kind of value? Well, let's say I board a bullet train. Let's say I board a bus. Let's say I just use whatever ties into the pairing of my personal data locker with Jasmy. And then you have this whole thing of like for Ripple with Interledger for, cross-border payments and so on. It sounds crazy, right, Will?
Like,
I mean,
yeah,
ahead, man.
it's actually everything. It's it allows two parties to trade different blockchains without a intermediary. It's through smart contract. So you could literally, the first usage I think of, it's not the only usage, but what makes sense to me right away is when I use a Visa card or a MasterCard and I send $10 to somebody. Well, my MasterCard or Visa card will be using maybe one coin. It'll shoot through, maybe go to a whole nother country that's another coin and show up as the translated value. That's what this atomic swap does. It's using a smart contract to discern all of that and then to make the other end get what it was supposed to get without it pausing in the middle somewhere. So that's an automated, it's an automated thing inside the smart contract instead of using validators, which slows transactions down. So even though this might be on you know, Ether, you know, using Ethereum, it's not using Ethereum's way. It's using a whole nother way. It's opened up to be able to go a whole nother way because Ethereum uses validators, right? They're kind of slow,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
And then,
real slow.
and where it stops, it gets expensive. So this cuts the cost as well because it's being executed by a smart contract. So the atomic swap thing is very cool.
I think it's game changer personally.
It is.
Yeah. And back to what Will was saying, you know how he mentioned, you know, Ethereum. Well, it's like, you know, if you look more into this, he even gives that example of what Will's talking about. Let's see about where we last leave out because we did talk about the whole thing of. Let me make sure I'm not muted.
It's called a HTLC. There it is up there. What that is?
Yeah,
that's that's a hash time clock contract. So it's emulating hashing by a computer by pre-hashed contracts, so to speak.
Right. And then, you know, we got to this halfway part where it talked about payments are routed along the paths that are compromised of off-chain payment channels. Like, come on, guys, off-chain payment channels. Like, you know how many times, like, we talked about this with not just, you know, XRP with Ripple, but even Stellar for
off-chain, man.
Remember how they always talk about, you know, they lead the charge when it comes to on-ramps, off-ramps, right? Yeah. How about this, guys? Side chain, because you remember how David Schwartz was always talking about EVM side chains. I'm just being honest. Look at this. You can see it plain as day. Side chain approaches assume the existence of a main chain and support the transfer of value between the main chain and side chains. Again, back to David Schwartz, which are regarded as subordinate to the main chain. Ledger of ledger approaches introduce a new super ledger. Oh my gosh. Just real quick, Will, you got to hear this for a second. So Hara always drops these little subliminal messages, and some people just don't like it. I'll be honest, a lot of people don't like it. Like, stop giving us subliminal messages. Super wallet, super ledger, super chain. But I mean, again, here it is. So introducing a new super ledger with the goal of having multiple sidechain-like ledgers, back to David Schwartz, which can also support the interconnection to existing ledgers. Back to what Will just mentioned. Great example, Will. I'll give you a dab. Such as Ethereum and Bitcoin. Elaborate on that. You were talking about Ethereum. If you're there. Okay, sorry.
Well, just what this does is makes the negative qualities of Ethereum irrelevant.
Well, we had this roll up though. Yeah.
Well, here's the concern. Here's a big concern. Who has not had a concern that the Ethereum gate's going to crash Ethereum, and then all of a sudden we're going to have all these coins? I was thinking the other day, what a problem that would be. And then when we were learning this today, I was like, well, that kind of just takes an eraser and erases a little bit of those issues, because the problem with Ethereum has been the fees. So who's going to put up with the fees? So if they start getting in trouble, can't you see wanting to swap? Well, this right here has eliminated a lot of those worries in my mind anyway. I don't know if that does that for y'all, but do you see what I'm seeing with that?
I totally see what you're saying with that. I mean,
you don't need, so we're not paying hashers, right? We're not paying miners. It's not stopping off somewhere. This is being, my own term, pre-hashed through a smart contract. And then it's just going straight through, man. It's just shooting from one end to the other.
Well, I think you're spot on. I think you're 100% spot on with that. Yeah.
Peer-to-peer.
Right, peer-to-peer. What's the other part? You mentioned the whole thing of Ethereum. How this bottom part, Will? Various approaches differ in the reliability of performing interledger operations, specifically, and then back to the whole thing of atomic swaps. If atomic cross-chain transactions are performed by a single entity, then this entity could be a single point of failure. On the other hand,
Right.
bridging even mentions that. Look at that, Will.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm saying right. I mean, if you go with the if atomic cross chain transactions are performed by a single entity, yeah, there can be complete failure. But what they're saying is, on the other hand, bridging approaches side chains and ledger of ledger approaches involve multiple nodes and implement the interledger operation. So the decentralized operation yields a high reliability. Well, yeah, it's going on in a more thorough, exact way, and it's recorded because the smart contracts not just in one spot. Those are easy to inspect.
Right.
I mean, the proof happens on the way, so it happens on the other end. There's nothing to do.
The key thing is this interoperability for Ripple with Interledger to do cross-border payments, which for most of us, like, and I'm just looking at it from the outside view, like I was telling Will, it seemed cuckoo. It seemed nuts. Like, really? I'm supposed to take Jasmy serious and cross-border payments? I mean, even on the surface, right? Well, it just sounds like somebody's tuning in right now. They'd be like, huh, really? I don't know.
Well, especially if you're not set up for it, it's like, okay, can't say that though, can we? Can't say that now.
Right. Finally, the reliability approaches involving transaction across a network, W3C ILP, as in with the interledger protocol, depends on the existence of redundant paths between the end nodes that wish to transact. Now let's jump over to this. Let's actually take you to something a little bit more solid, okay? And we're about roughly 75% through this, okay, guys? So we want to talk about this. I'll just mention this for a brief moment, and I definitely want Will to chime in. So this is originally cited back in 2017, and for some of you guys, you want everything to be like posted today. You got to keep in mind, I'm glad this is posted back in 2017. So we started originally from, I think it was 2010. Then we advanced everything to what was mentioned in regards to that framework in Europe, 2020. What about Ripple? Well, what about Ripple? Look at the reference here. Bank of England. What did we recently talk about with Quant and Jasmy? Well, we have interoperability. Bank of England shows Quant networks over Ledger. Okay, so there's that. What about Bank of Internet Settlements? Yeah, we established that. Okay, all right, I'm with you. What about Bank of England and Ripple and all this whole thing? Let's jump into it. So there was, in fact, if you're wondering, like, I want a POC example, POC as in proof of concept. We carried out a proof of concept with Ripple to explore the synchronized movement of two different currencies across two different real-time gross settlement systems linked using Ripple Connect and the Interledger protocol. We wanted to demonstrate how this kind of synchronization might lower settlement risk and improve the speed and efficiency of cross-border payments. And again, we will take you to this PDF, but when you even look more into this, Will, that on the surface, and here's the PDF for you guys. I mean, Will, look at what it says. Exploring the synchronized settlement of payments using the Interledger protocol, and then back to the whole thing of the beginning of the Jasmy outline. Talks about synchronization, talks about super wallet. You get what I'm saying? It's just
there it all is, right?
It's crazy stuff, man. It's just we're gonna obviously get more into it, but
it's the same exact line. Yeah, it's like we're reading the same thing, isn't it?
It tells me that we need to take. I'm at least taking it more serious. I'm not saying for all you guys, have the same point of view that we have and so on. We're not saying that this is 100% proof. I feel as though it's pretty solid, because it finally tells me, I was wondering about it for a while. Some of you guys were wondering about it for a while, like cross-border payments, Jasmy, finance, democratization. Some people are saying, Jasmy, just stay in your own lane. IoT, that's a big industry to begin with. I would have been satisfied with just that, to be honest. But for them to get into cross-border payments, Will, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have customers too. If you think about it, I always think about, these people are salespeople. Even the CEOs, they're going around, they're meeting people, and what are they doing? They're trying to show their product. When I was an insurance agent for a lot of years, and so you have multiple products. So when you go to somebody with one product, you might hear them say, I really have my house and car insurance taken care of, but I was thinking about life insurance. Well, what's the likelihood of, Jasmy going to, I mean, it might sound ridiculous now, but what if Jasmy's talking to Apple and Apple, is like, well, yeah, well, not Apple, maybe, but whatever company they're talking to says, the security aspect, maybe we're not into, maybe Apple, maybe another company, but we do some cross border and we need some kind of a solution. We don't do a ton. Well, hey, they might be able to pick that up. You pick up, if you're able to do a wide variety of things, sometimes they want one-stop shop solution. And that could be what the future of a lot of this is that companies have many solutions, and then it becomes service oriented, where, I don't know, extra things that they throw in there and do, or specific types of contracts, or slowly one company might become when you want to do bonds or treasuries, this is who you go to, or you want to do um, uh, okay, so all of the companies that Jasmy is going to work with are going to be merchant companies that have customer base. Well, that's going to be a lot of transactions. Once they're into this, what if they pick up a lot of merchant business and they're like, well, we handle that too. We can totally tokenize all of your transactions for you. So having the ability to do this isn't going to hurt them. It's only going to help them.
I couldn't agree more. Just obviously getting to a little bit more about this, guys, in regards to interledger, all of this stuff. I want to just share a couple things. This is not like 21 or 23 or 100 pages. Let's talk about Bank of England real quick. So for one, it mentions that you had this fintech accelerator, and basically there's these innovative firms, new technologies. In this POC, proof of concept, they wanted to explore the concept of synchronized movement of two different currencies. I mean, again, guys, think about it for a second. We could use example Jasmy with this layer 2, Ripple, for example, as well. Talking about simulated real-time gross settlement. You always hear that term being mentioned, real-time gross settlement, RTGS. But how about using the interledger protocol? And in a little bit, we'll give you an example, video example of Ripple and interledger. It was from a few years back, but it's only like 5 minutes. And this guy does a really good job getting to the nitty gritty. But we have to address, again, a little bit more of the elephant in the room, which is Jasmy, finance democratization, cross-border payments. So let's give you this example. In the middle paragraph, it says the bank has also recently started a program of work to replace the UK's real-time gross settlement service. Well, let's apply this not to necessarily the Bank of England, but like the Bank of Japan. I want you guys to think about this for a second. RTGS is where financial institutions hold their sterling bank accounts. Well, how about yen-denominated stable coins, or yen, period? Like any account holder, these institutions can store balances, reserves in these accounts and use them to make payments. Now, like it says here, Bank of England has been operating RTGS since 1996 to provide a safe and immediate way for banks to exchange payments. Now, let's fast forward that to Jasmy. 2024, we should start seeing Japanese yen-denominated stablecoins. Well, what about the pairings? Exactly. The pairings will be with Jasmy. Oh, that's bull. Is it though? What do we know from Jasmy? Jasmy was the first to become regulatory compliant in a country that's more strict than the United States when it comes to regulatory compliance. FSA, JVCEA. Now, if you're not caught up on with this, I'll just give you a quick little reminder. And I've always said it numerous times, Genki Oda. Who's Genki Oda? Well, BitPoint. Who's BitPoint? They're roughly about 51% invested into Jasmy. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, how about this other one? Back in 2016, 2017, roughly, Genki Oda, through BitPoint, blanketed Japan all over the place with what they refer to as BitPoint BTC ATMs, Bitcoin ATMs, all over the place. What about when we get the whole thing of personal data lockers blanketed all over Japan, right? You get where I'm coming from? How about this for size? Genki Oda is part of SBI Japan. A few months ago, what did we confirm? SBI Japan, you had XDC, Zinfin, went over to SBI Japan, right? Making big plans for what? Digital trade. What about Quant? That happened literally the same time as XDC a few months back. So you already have that. And we already cover this in the other deep dive videos, like 3 or 4 of them at this point. But what about Ripple? Yes. Boom, because of Interledger. Now, we're going to give you some more examples about this. But like it says, talks about that since 2006, you have this way for banks can have a safe and immediate way to exchange payments. Since 2006, in regards to Bank of England, it's been paying interest on reserves held in RTGS to support the implementation of monetary policy set by the Monetary Policy Committee. The vision of the renewed service is not set up for the RTGS blueprint back in May 2017, but it states that the bank explained that it planned to introduce new functionality to support the synchronization of cash movements made in the real-time gross settlements. And you've seen Louis Jackson talk about this all the time, right? Shout out to him. With the movement of cash and assets held on other systems in the next generation of just that, real-time gross settlements. Talks about more of the benefits and the cost, but the benefits and the costs, right, to do what? Use blockchain technology, distributed ledger technologies to move money way faster, more efficient, less expensive. They have this whole proof of concept, and I'll show you a little bit more about Interledger. Here it is. Two different simulated RTGS systems that can represent 2 different countries. Think about that for a second. I'll reread this. This proof of concept focus on a high value, listen to this, guys, this is good stuff, cross-border payment scenario in which transactions in 2 different currencies, so think of Jasmy, think of Ripple's XRP, for instance, are executed simultaneously to different simulated RTGS systems that could represent 2 different countries. Even if you didn't, use the example of Ripple, we can still say, okay, the pairing of Jasmy with yen-denominated stablecoins, interoperability through Interledger to make it all happen. This last point, determining whether Interledger protocol could provide a suitable technical solution to this scenario. But again, 2 different simulated real-time gross settlement systems. Japanese yen-denominated stablecoins paired with the personal data locker of Jasmy. This back to Interledger, it all adds up from beginning to end, right, Will? I mean, are we too far off on this? This is insane.
They're in the same sandbox. They're going to probably end up playing together.
I like that statement. That's a good analogy. That's easy to understand. All right, this last part, guys, I want to just show you this. Look at this. Back then, we successfully integrated the Ripple solution, because some people were like, well, where does it mention Ripple? With 2 simulated RTGS systems, remember this, hosted in the cloud. I see where Max is going with that. Yeah, what about the whole thing of our cloud solution? Hence why we went with Polkadot. And demonstrated that we can process a successful cross-border payment across 2 RTGS systems simultaneously. We demonstrated an attempted cross-border payment that failed validation on the receiving side would not be honored, but we understood on the other example that Will mentioned, doesn't even really matter. This last part. What about these things in regards to the synchronization of banks? Because that's going to be a problem that needs to be solved with, what is it, the Bank of Japan, all this stuff for, interoperability, all that stuff. So look, interledger protocol is able to support synchronization of payments between these simulated ledgers, or these two ones that we're focused on. So boom, check mark, done. The ILP, as an interledger protocol, validator created a single source of truth between the two ledgers, eliminating the need for separate processes, such as mutual reconciliation between separate ledgers. Cross-border payments, when applied to wholesale markets, present different challenges than when compared with retail. Right, who referenced that? Brad Garlinghouse. He even said how many times? Their focus is not on retail. All right, back to this. Ripple product is designed to handle all this, both on retail and corporate. Okay. The availability of liquidity is one such challenge, and the proof of concept allowed the bank and Ripple to begin exploring these questions. The bank is considering further proof of concepts to extend its understanding of the dimensions of the synchronization concept. Oh, that concept where? Maybe in Japan, and think about what they've been doing in Japan. They got IVS Crypto 2023 in Japan. And who was Ripple? They were the diamond sponsor. I mean, come on, guys. Right, Will? I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're standing there scratching each other's back.
Oh, they're doing more than that, man.
Well, we don't want to go into that.
Yeah. All right. Will, you said that you want to put emphasis on this part. So for some of you guys, this is just Greek. You're like, I don't get it. We try to find something to put in layman's terms. This is interledger protocol, what it means, how it works. But yeah, go for it, Will. I'll leave it right up there for you.
Yeah, interledger protocol. Sometimes you guys ever hear all these terminologies and your eyes start rolling back in your head? I was telling Max, I said mine does, because there's always a new one. When I was in the military, I made up this extremely long, well, it was a couple paragraphs using all the acronyms, and what was funny is I did it as a joke, but I would say it, so I had this whole little thing and I would say it and people wouldn't even recognize that's what I was doing because it was so part of the language, everything had an acronym. And I was talking to my wife about it. She worked for the state of Georgia for a while and just acronyms all over the place. So it can get wearisome, it can for me because I get them twisted up. And interledger protocol. Let's just read what it is. Well, you got the control of the thing there. It's just an open source protocol, and it connects. It just connects everything and takes out intermediaries so that the languages can interpret. It's like a self-interpreting language. And didn't we look up who did that? Who made that, Max? Didn't we look that up today?
Yeah, I thought this guy was related to David Schwartz.
May the Schwartz be with you.
Yeah, if you guys appreciate the content, all we ask is you to smash the like. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, my name is Evan. I work at Ripple on the Interledger protocol. I'm going to go through. Today I'm going to be talking very quickly about Interledger and streaming payments. So I'm the co-inventor of Interledger. I've been working on it full-time for the past 3 years. So the problem that we want to solve is today, if you tried to go and actually use cryptocurrency for anything, you would have a situation like this. You walk into a grocery store, you say, hey, do you accept Ether? And they would say, what is that? No, sorry. And the fundamental problem is that all of these different payment networks are disconnected. You can't use any type of cryptocurrency today for payments because you need the other person to actually accept that cryptocurrency. Blockchains don't solve the interoperability problem by themselves. Blockchains are individual networks that have the same problems as traditional ones where they're all disconnected. What we need is a system for internetworking payment networks. And so this term internetworking comes from the internet. That's what it's named after. And at its core, the internet is all about routing little packets of data across independent networks. So what we need is a system for routing packets of money across independent payment networks. So what that would enable is me to pay you even if I have some kind of super obscure cryptocurrency and you just want dollars or whatever you want. So what Interledger does is it routes packets of money very similarly to how the internet routes packets of data. I won't get into too much of how that works, but I want to walk through some of the cool things that this lets you do. So when we're applying this analogy with the internet, one of the things we get to is this idea of streaming payments. So if you broke up payments into little tiny chunks and could route these packets super efficiently, what you could end up with is this idea of streaming payments. So one of the things that could look like is, oh, you need to send a bigger payment? Okay, it depends on your payment bandwidth, which is a weird concept that we work with a lot, where that would be measured in dollars per second that you can send or whatever currency you have. Some of the cool use cases that come out of this, things like streaming media. So today payments are super inefficient and clunky, and so we prefer, things like monthly subscriptions. I pay my $10 a month because I don't want to be bothered by this. If you made the payments super efficient and could do it on a very small basis, you could do things like paying for a second of video. So you're streaming me video, I'm streaming you money, and if I pause the video, I stop paying for it. If I walk away, I stop. If I come back and hit play again, keep streaming money because it would be that efficient. Another cool thing that comes out of this is the idea of sign-up-less services. Today in the physical world, when you walk into a shop and you want to have some financial exchange, the exchange normally goes, I give you money, you give me good or service, and I walk out. I don't need an account, I don't need to sign up, things like that. Today on the internet, you always need to sign up for accounts because there's no way to do this very seamless. Here's a little bit of money, you give me a little bit of service, rinse and repeat. As a business, if you're giving me hosting services or something like that, you don't need to know who I am, you just need the money. And so with something like Interledger, you'd enable anybody to land money in your account, even if they're on some completely different payment network. So that would enable sign-up-less services. Another neat idea we've been playing with is the idea of a creative marketplace license. So the idea here is today we have Creative Commons license, which is awesome. If you want to give away your work, it's a really, really great project. One of the issues with Creative Commons is there's no way to have a license that's as easy to use where you can actually monetize your work. So the idea here is with something like Interledger, you could actually have a license that says anybody can use this content, feel free to, but for every download or view or whatever kind of interaction you want to monetize, just pay me at this address. And the thing that's really missing today in order to do this is the assumption that just anybody could pay you. Because there's no interoperability and because we don't have internetworking for payments, if you did this kind of license, you'd be like, okay, anybody that has Bitcoin can now pay me, which is a tiny subset of everybody. The thing that makes the internet work is that everybody can access it. Well, last kind of fun thing to throw out there is if you connect every type of currency and payment network together, what you can enable is payments from weird currencies. So today you use dollars because everyone else accepts dollars here. If everything's connected, you could pay with stocks, community currency, local currency, crypto, whatever you prefer. So I'll leave you with 3 questions to consider. Number 1, which ledgers will be the most attractive when everything is connected together? What kind of features would you want? Number 2, will interoperability bolster or kill app-specific tokens? And number 3, what new businesses can you create with streaming payments? Thanks.
Wow, that is so amazing. I just want to give my closing comment on it. I want you to chime in as well, but I did write a couple notes down, Will. This was what really should stand out for you guys. And please, if you're into Jasmy or both XRP or not even into any of them, I want to state this, and that is Jasmy has been looking to create a decentralized data marketplace. Okay, that's what really stands out for him, especially this whole concept of trying to do this thing of, cross-border payments. But if you were watching that video, the guy mentions a creative marketplace license for what? Monetization. What has Jasmy mentioned in regards to you having a personal data locker for you can have the option to do what? Monetize your data. Some people might only sell their data for $5. Some people might sell for hundreds or thousands. Who knows? Depending on how valuable that data is. So that example that he gave, Mr. Schwartz, not David Schwartz, but this guy, that was a great example. And then this last one, and I'll kick it over to you, Will. Payments from weird currencies. Think about what you just mentioned. He mentioned crypto, but he mentioned weird currencies. He said specifically, Will, local currencies. This pounds home everything I've been talking about for 8+ months, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of yen-denominated stablecoins. So back to you, man.
Yeah. No, exactly. I don't really know what to add. Oh, I did think of something to add. Jasmy's, of course, based out of Japan. Japan's economy, they were begging for inflation for years, actually, because the Japanese save tons of money. They save money like crazy. And that was affecting the system in a way that they had not anticipated. The McCarthyism system was working real good, but they were saving money, and it kind of affected everything. That's an aspect that it's the third largest economy. Jasmy becomes big. It's going to become big there as well, which that's the root of where it's going to get big. In the third largest economy is an economy where they save money. So you see what's going to happen. They're talking about stability, and they're talking about this lock that they were doing to try to stabilize the coin. I have a feeling when it gets bigger, it's going to stabilize just because of the Japanese people and their whole way of doing things. But I just wanted to throw that in there.
You mean like the honor
That's
system?
free.
Yeah.
It's free. No super chat needed.
No, I was saying like the honor system, they have a sense of honor, right? Anyway.